Wong with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's annual Hanguang military exercise is now in its third day. A major part of the exercise is drills featuring the country's military aircraft. For more on those, our defense reporter Jaime Okan joins us live from our newsroom in Taipei. Jaime, what's the latest with these exercises?
That's right. So Hanguang is pretty much a practice run for how Taiwan would defend against an all-out invasion from China. And a big part of that is practicing how to best utilize Taiwan's fighter jets. So we're now getting more updates from the military as well as new footage from the Air Force, which shows a variety of different fighter jets taking off and leaving to other bases that are in different parts of the country around Taiwan. The military says that's part of a force preservation plan, basically trying to protect as many of its fighter jets as possible. That's a pretty standard part of the country's overall defense strategy, where we'll see fighter jets that are on the west coast, so the side that's closer to China, they'll fly to the east to cities like Hualien and to Taidong, away from a potential front line and from the safety of the Central Mountain region. Specifically, one base in Hualien, Jiasan Air Force Base, can reportedly hold up to 300 fighter jets alone inside the mountains where the base is located. Now, for more on this, I spoke to Lauren Dickey. She's a non-resident senior fellow at the China Power Project based in Washington, D.C. And I asked her, what is it specifically about this drill that's so significant for Taiwan?
So you don't want to have all of your crown jewels of anything in one location. And so whether that's dispersing them across the F-16 fleet in this case or other aircraft, dispersing them across the island, or dispersing them even beyond the island, just getting them off of Taiwan and flying them in the airspace to the east of Taiwan, for instance, in a crisis, that gives them some flexibility to not be basically stationary targets that could be seen or tracked by the PRC otherwise.
Looking at the war in Ukraine, which Taiwan's military says it's taking lessons from, what do you think we can learn specifically about the Air Force?
I think if there's one thing that we should all be disavowed of after Ukraine is the notion that an Air Force can just be rendered moot by a superior adversary or an adversary that outnumbers or outqualifies your own Air Force, right? The Ukrainians figured out how to use their Air Force, their fixed wing Air Force, to effect against Russia in a very geographically confined, probably electromagnetically complex war fight, right? And if Ukraine can figure that out, I think that we should probably stop saying that Taiwan won't have an Air Force. To me, it's really a question of how do we make that Air Force as potent and survivable as possible for as long as we can, in the opening days and weeks of any conflict.
Now, as Hanguang continues, more and more military equipment and soldiers will start to make their way into the streets of major cities across Taiwan. And so the military has issued a statement apologizing if there's going to be any inconvenience for people that are here in Taiwan.
Thanks for that update, Jaime. That was Jaime Okan live from our newsroom in Taipei. 2 crashes in one day, both involving military vehicles, are being investigated as Taiwan holds its Hanguang exercises. On Wednesday, a military truck collided with a scooter at an intersection in central Taiwan. The scooter's driver suffered minor injuries. That same day, an artillery vehicle crashed into 4 parked cars on a residential street in Taoyuan. No one was hurt. U.S. President Donald Trump has told Canada he's slapping the country with 35% tariffs starting from August 1st. Trump wrote in a letter to Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney that the tariffs are a response to alleged fentanyl trafficking through Canada into the U.S. He added that if Ottawa retaliates with its own increased tariffs, any amount it raises them by would be added to his base of 35%. Trump's letter comes a day after he announced new tariffs on 8 countries, with the highest rate of 50% on Brazil. Brazil's president says he's willing to negotiate with the U.S., but will respond with his own 50% tariffs if that falls through. Though Taiwan is not included in the new wave of U.S. tariffs, it may still feel the effects due to its unique geopolitical status. For more on this, reporter Ai Chi spoke to Darson Chiu, Director General of the Confederation of Asia-Pacific Chambers of Commerce and Industry.
Japan and South Korea are now facing largely unchanged 25% tariffs from the original April announcement. How should Taiwan view this given how similar the economies are, and what are Taiwan's strengths compared to them?
那我们可以知道，就是说日本的首相跟韩国总统最近对川普的态度都是非常强硬的啊。那另外最近还有一个态度很强硬的国家就是巴西，结果巴西呢得到了这个50% 的关税。那因此我觉得说台湾的情况，虽然说经济情势这个整个结构跟日韩相近但是不必然会得到这么高的关税了而且在这个4月2号之后我们的团队一直在释出善意包括去美国投资采购美国天然气等等。台湾最主要的优势就是说现在是我们知道川普的这个关税措施那最主要是希望美国的再工业化那也就是说希望其他国家去他那里投资。但是台湾呢是全世界唯一的国家呢能够把这个半导体的高阶制程4奈米到美国投资的这样的一个国家。
What kind of challenges does Taiwan face from the tariffs, and what ripple effects might these have globally?
我们知道就是说很多的产品其实它的替代性还是很高那美国的这个进口商呢一定会要求这些供应链的厂商分担这个关税，那就会压缩到这些企业的毛利。那此外的话，如果说另外一个情境就是日韩呢接下来谈到一个比较好的关税，那但是呢台湾反而是得到一个就是说没有那么有利的一个关税税率的话，那我们相关的产品呢的这个市场价格的竞争优势呢也会因此丧失。为什么？因为日韩基本上是台湾在比如说像一些传产工具机机械主要的竞争对手。
How can Taiwan's government enterprises take a more proactive role in global trade moving forward?
台湾呢必须要不断的提升在高科技甚至传产也是一样，提升在供应链的位阶那这个方法提升位阶的话，就是说让这个产品的这个替代效果降低啦在市场上的对我们特定的产品的需求会持续的增强那这个政府可以做什么呢？就是说让台湾呢拥有一个很好的一个研发的环境那另外的话对特定的产业呢予以奖励就是这部分的话政府可以鼓励企业不断的在这个供应链往上游移动我们讲说提升供应链位阶大概这样，就是说那个比较高阶的这个制程来保障这个产品持续为市场所需要。
That was economic analyst Darson Chu. At a gala dinner in Malaysia, ASEAN leaders are talking U.S. tariff policy. But with major powers from outside the region joining in, geopolitical rivalries are on the menu too. John Van Trieste reports.
Dinner is served in Kuala Lumpur as a diplomatic who's who gathers in Malaysia. This is a meeting of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, but this time invited guests include a range of foreign ministers from far beyond the region. But behind the handshakes, smiles, and the dancing is delicate tension. The shadow of U.S. tariffs looms over the proceedings, and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is here. ASEAN member countries now face U.S. tariffs of 25 to 40% on their goods, and some of the guest nations from outside the region have also got their tariff notices from the Trump administration. Rubio defended the letters and the tariff set to come.
Now, obviously, that does not foreclose the opportunity for individual countries to enter into negotiations that perhaps can adjust those numbers. But in the end, the president still remains very committed to a rebalancing of trade that's fair to America and also at the same time protects our own industrial capabilities.
But elsewhere, there were signs of Asian countries ready to weather the tariff storm together. Host Malaysia's prime minister has also called for Southeast Asia to come together and its members to trade more with one another in difficult times.
Tariffs, export restrictions, and investment barriers have now become the sharpened instruments of geopolitical rivalry. This is no passing storm. It is a new weather of our time. Now, ASEAN must confront this reality with clarity and conviction.
And at a meeting of the ASEAN Plus 3, China, Japan, and South Korea, China's Foreign Minister Wang had this to say.
同时，我们也面临单边保护主义的冲击，个别大国滥施关税等挑战。形势越是复杂，10+3合作也要顺应大势，排除干扰，担当作为，同舟共济，不断增强合作动力，提升发展韧性，持续推进区域一体化进程，建设好我们的共同家园。
But while tariffs took up much of the energy, geopolitics was on the menu too, with major rivals represented in one place. Marco Rubio has met with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and he's expected to meet Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi later today. Despite the current administration taking an America First approach, Rubio has said the U.S. is committed to ASEAN and the broader region.
The Indo-Pacific, the region, remains a focal point of U.S. foreign policy. When I hear in the news that perhaps the United States or the world might be distracted by events in other parts of the planet, I would say distraction is impossible, because it is our view, our strong view, and a reality that this century and the story of the next 50 years will largely be written here, in this region, in this part of the world.
And so, amid polite diplomatic surroundings, some of the great global tensions of the day are playing out, as the large swathes of the globe represented here wait to see what comes out of these talks. Andy Xue and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thailand has once more criminalized cannabis. Shops can now only sell to customers with a prescription, a major blow to a huge industry. Isabel Wong reports.
In Thailand, streets lined with cannabis shops have become a familiar sight after the country became the first in Asia to decriminalize the drug 3 years ago. Tourists flocked to the country as cannabis became easily accessible for recreational use. But that's all changed. The government has added cannabis back onto the list of prescribed narcotics, making it illegal to use without a prescription for medical use. This shift is expected to impact nearly 20,000 licensed cannabis shops.
Some provinces with heavy stigma is pretty much using this as a crackdown, while some other provinces, realizing that they have way too many shops within their area and don't know what to do with the overwhelmed work that is about to come out, are also saying to the shop owners, like, to calm down, we're not changing the rules yet. So there's a lot of confusion that's going on. Owners are freaking out. A lot of them are scared.
A lot of shops are now closes. Yeah, but now we changed the plan. Maybe open to clinics.
So what does the law change entail? Cannabis is now for medical use only. No recreational use is allowed. Sales will be limited to a 30-day supply. Violators may face up to a year in prison and a $600 fine. But some customers think there will be ways to get around the restrictions.
Now they want to solve the problem by just putting in the license. In the end, it's just the same, right? I can ask someone that I know, if he or she may be a doctor, I can get a license for what? I don't know how many baht I have to pay, right? So the problem still exists.
But why is Thailand doing this? The government says legalized cannabis has caused social problems, with increased use among young people, addiction, and complaints about foreigners using it in public. Cannabis advocates like Kitty say they are working on finding ways to raise public awareness in favor of it, increasing acceptance and understanding to keep the plant legal. Devin Tai and Isabel Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we take you to San Francisco, where visitors are taking photos and selfies with the pungent corpse flower. I'm Tiffany Wong. Take care and see you next time.